Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. The brothers Max and here along with you. I'm Nate. That is Aaron.
Hello, hello, hello.
And we are back after quite some time away. We appreciate for that. We apologize for that, but we appreciate your patience as we've had a lot going on in life in the month of July. July's been a hell of a month. It's been a hell of a year. It's been a hell of a year this month.
Yeah, July sucked.
Yes. So hopefully August through September into the holidays brings more pleasantry for us here at the WNR Podcast Network. But we're trying to get back on track this week with the We Can't Wrestle podcast and Reliving the Extreme. So as you left us a few weeks ago, we had done our draft of the year 1992. We had each drafted our roster of 30 to build toward our big pay-per-view spectaculars that we're going to put on with these rosters that we drafted. And Aaron and I talked about after the fact what commentators, interviewers, managers we would like to have on our shows. We did that after we had recorded the show. So I will tell you what mine is. This week, we're going to do my 4 weeks of TV building up to my pay-per-view and my pay-per-view. And then next week, we'll do the same for Aaron's. I don't know if you did 4 weeks, 2 weeks. I don't know how many weeks of TV you did, but
4.
I did 4.
4 weeks in a month.
I will say this also. The commentator team that I picked for my show, and again, this is 1992, everybody. So all these people are still alive. They are the age they were in 92. I'm putting them back together. Gorilla and Jesse are my commentary team. Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse Ventura. A very young mannequin-looking Eric Bischoff is my interview guy. And as managers for my promotion, I picked Paul E. Dangerously, the Doctor of Style, Slick, and Elizabeth, because I drafted Randy Savage, and I do want to use Elizabeth along with Randy Savage, because this is Neon Cowboy Randy Savage in 1992. And I did not name my federation, so it is what it is, but it has a champion and stuff. But anyway, I didn't name it per se, but I also wanted to fill you in on my TV format. I don't know how you did yours, but I guess we'll find out next week. But I formatted my TV kind of like the TBS Saturday night shows. It's a 2-hour show, kind of in a smaller, venue.
Yeah.
Building toward. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but like they said, like studio wrestling died or whatever, and it all went to the arena.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you watch like Nitro, they never went away from the studio wrestling format. They just put the studio wrestling format in an arena. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah.
Like they hardly ever went backstage for like a interview or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like
the only time they started doing that was when it literally stopped being WCW when Russo took over.
Yeah.
When Russo took over, he tried to turn it into the WWF and book like the WWF did TV, and it didn't fucking work for WCW because it's a different product.
Yeah, like shit never happened in the back, hardly ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like they still did like some stuff with like the NWO in the back, but even like big attacks on guys, it would be out in the arena. You know what I mean?
Right. The only time they
sidebar.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like the only time on Nitro that they ever did like locker room style interviews even was when I wonder because they would do the locker rooms. If you notice, they do the locker room style interviews when they do like the spring breaks and they were outdoors. And I wonder if they did that just because of the audio. You know what
Possibly,
I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you interview somebody in an open air, it has a weird sound as compared to when it's not open air. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not in television production. But
yeah,
you're right. They just took
in
the studio
in a more intimate setting like that with a smaller crowd. You don't know what's going to get picked up either, and especially when it's like college kids.
Yeah. Fuck you, Sullivan.
Yeah, suck a dick. Like we don't need that. But no, I've been rewatching a lot of Nitro just because of whatever. I've thought of that. I'm like, they were always like a studio wrestling company. They always produced it like studio wrestling, just in an arena. But sorry.
So for my kickoff, oh, that's okay. For my kickoff of my wrestling promotion here. So obviously this is 1992. I'm a smart promoter in 1992. I have these two guys on my roster. So although my pay-per-view is going to crown like some of my initial champions and such, my pay-per-view is whatever my federation's name is, presents Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair, because it would literally be the first time ever Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. So that's my big draw, right? It's just the Hogan. It's the Hogan versus Flair pay-per-view.
Uh-huh.
I think in 1992, that's going to be the biggest. I mean, obviously, that's going to be the biggest draw to get people in to watch the show.
So is it like a boxing poster?
Yeah, that kind of.
Almost.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm. Yeah, kind of what I'm going at here. So that's the pitch. We opened my first show up week 1, Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura. Obviously, they're standing there with the interview. They introduce Eric Bischoff as the backstage roaming reporter or whatever. And then they give us a preview and intro. We've already had a little video at the beginning about Hogan and Flair. But we are going to crown our first world champion at the pay-per-view. And the 8-man tournament begins tonight with 4 matches. And Gorilla tells us those matches will be as follows. In the first round of the title tournament, Terry Funk versus Tatanka. I don't know if they ever wrestled each other.
No.
Sting versus Barry Windham. Macho Man Randy Savage versus Greg Valentine. And Michael P.S. Hayes versus the Big Boss Man. Those are our first round championship matches in the tournament. And then they also discuss that we are going to have a tag team championship and an intercontinental championship. The tag titles will be determined at the pay-per-view after a 4-team tournament, which the first round starts next week. Or I guess it would be the only round until the finals, because there's only 4 teams in the tag tournament. It's just a 4-team tournament. We'll see Steve Williams and Terry Gordy against the Patriot and Marcus Bagwell, and the Beverly Brothers against the team of Coco Beware and Tito Santana. And in 2 weeks on the show, we're going to have a 10-man battle royal to crown our Intercontinental Champion. So that's how we're getting to our championships. And the Intercontinental title will be determined in 2 weeks on pay-per-view, or on TV, but will be defended on pay-per-view. Okay. The first match out of the chute for my promotion. It's the first round match in the championship tournament. Terry Funk versus Tatanka. I know you had a little haha when I interviewed.
I just thought that was funny.
And Terry Funk does defeat Tatanka in a semi-competitive match with a pinfall. Eric Bischoff interviews Terry Funk after the match, and of course he's crazy Terry Funk, and he's going to be the champion of the world. And then once he wins the championship of the world, he says he's going to go out during Flair and Hogan and slap them both across their stupid faces.
Correct.
We get a video of Hulk Hogan showing, I mean, I don't know how I got all this footage of Hulk Hogan from the WWF, but I got it somehow. This is a fantasy world, motherfuckers. Anyway, if it's some sort of a video of Hulk Hogan, we're just playing a video here. And then we get Paul E. Dangerously.
Japanese footage.
Yeah, Japanese footage. We get Paul E. Dangerously out here. And he says that in this promotion of mine, the Dangerous Alliance is alive and well. And he brings out Steve Austin and Bobby Eaton, who are already members of the Dangerous Alliance. And he said, but we're not just a tag team, we're an alliance, so we need a third man. And the third man in the Dangerous Alliance here in my promotion to start anyway is going to be Barry Windham. Paul Lee introduces Barry Windham. So Steve Austin, Bobby Eaton, and Barry Windham are my Dangerous Alliance.
All right. I can dig it.
After that, Steve Austin beats Tito Santana. You know, and just kind of shit talks and trash talks, because I love Steve Austin at this era because he was stunning Steve Austin, but he was starting to develop that bit of an attitude.
Oh, yeah. He was starting to
And
turn into his own guy and
yeah,
know what he wanted this character to be.
had that smart mouth, and I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's like he said on that, like on his one of his DVDs, and they were like, "From Hollywood, California, stunning Steve Austin," and in his mind, he's like, "Who the fuck ever said I was from Hollywood, California?" Like, what? Like he didn't want that to be his character. Like he
Yeah,
didn't think of Stone Cold, but I mean, he knew Stunning Steve was his character, but he didn't want to be some Hollywood playboy guy. He wanted to be a
right.
badass.
Then after the Austin Santana match, we have a creepy video with Papa Shango doing the whole creepy Papa Shango stuff. And he is putting a curse on somebody in my promotion. Now, I don't want to ruin anything, but spoilers, whatever. This feud is not going to be settled at my pay-per-view that I have here. I guess if we ever decide to continue on doing these promotions, it might. But one thing I would not do with this is I would do, like I've always said with the Papa Shango character, it's cool for him to put curses on people and stuff because the people that believe in voodoo. Where WWF took it too far was the shit with the green stuff falling out of the warrior's head and, stuff like that. So you can do this, but do it the right way. And that's the way I would do it. But the person that Papa Shango says he's cursing here in my promotion is Sting. So Papa Shango has his sights set on Sting, and then Sting's music starts.
Is there more to this storyline as it goes forward on your shows?
Yes.
Okay, then I won't say anything then. Go ahead.
As that video fades away, we see Sting in the back getting ready to come out for his match that he's going to have here against Barry Windham in the championship tournament, and he's watching a monitor, pretty much like, what the fuck is that?
He should be like, I literally just got over the Black Scorpion.
Right.
I literally just got rid of Ric Flair fucking with me. I finally got over that.
Yeah, if this guy makes a tiger disappear, I'm out of here. But the next match is a championship tournament match. First round, the winner goes on to face Terry Funk in the semifinals. It is Sting versus Barry Windham. It's a competitive match. Sting winds up getting a pin on Windham kind of out of nowhere, so he does get the win, but immediately Paulie Dangerously comes in with the phone, clocks Sting with the phone. Bobby Eaton comes out, starts helping Barry Windham beat up Sting, and then Scott Steiner comes to the ring to assist Sting running off the Dangerous Alliance. So, because this is 92 to me, 92 to 96 is peak Scott Steiner.
I mean,
yeah. I'm not saying that they weren't good. The Steiners weren't good before that, but to me, the years of 92 to 96 are when he was the most impressive.
Well, yeah, I mean, because he was good. He was one of those guys that was good right the minute he got in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he was just a natural athlete or whatever. But it's when he started. He was puppy with big paws when he first came in, and then like 92, he finally grew into it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And he was in amazing shape, but he wasn't clunky like he became.
Right.
You know. So yeah, in ring charisma wise and ability wise, yeah, this is peak Scott.
The next segment, Eric Bischoff is in the ring here in the studio, and he brings out Cactus Jack. And Cactus Jack talks about how the promoters of this promotion are already proving that they don't understand what he is, that they don't understand how insane he is, because the best thing they could have done is put him in the ring with 9 other men in a battle royal in 2 weeks. And he says he will obtain that Intercontinental Championship because he's just crazy enough to beat 9 other men in a battle royal. And for those of you that don't know, in 1992, a battle royal was still kind of a special thing in wrestling.
Yes.
So the next thing we get here after Cactus Jack's interview about the Intercontinental title battle royal in a couple of weeks is the Barbarian makes his debut on our TV here, and he's going to beat a jobber. He's just in a squash match, and he is managed by the Doctor of Style, Slick. We show a video. We show a video of Ric Flair, just kind of like the video we showed of Hulk Hogan. We have the next championship tournament match. It is Michael P.S. Hayes against the Big Boss Man. And he is Boss Man here. I'm not using him as Bubba or anything. I'm using the Boss Man gimmick because I like the Boss Man.
Yeah.
Michael Hayes winds up beating the Big Boss Man by cheating. He holds the, I don't want to say tights. I guess with Boss Man, it's the pants. But Hayes holds the pants for the win. So Hayes is going to advance onto the semifinals of the World Championship Tournament. Next match, just a showcase for Jushin Thunder Liger, as he has a matchup with Scotty Flamingo, and Liger goes over in that match. We have another video presentation for you on The Undertaker, coming soon to the Nate Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, I can't make up where you got that footage.
Well, I could say, I guess it wouldn't be footage. It'd be like, just like, you know, you could just put his music up and just show his silhouette or whatever. But
yeah,
Bobby Eaton then defeats Barry Horowitz. And then in the main event of the first episode of my show, it is the last first round championship tournament, and Randy Macho Man Savage defeats Greg the Hammer Valentine. And then Randy Savage cuts a promo in the ring to end the show with Jesse Ventura interviewing him, talking about how he's going to be the champion. So that sets up for the pay-per-view. No, it doesn't set up for the pay-per-view. I'm sorry. We are going to have, what's that? Yes. No, it does set up for the pay-per-view because I'm not doing I'm doing the semifinals and the finals on the pay-per-view. Sorry.
Okay.
I tripped over myself there. But it sets up for the pay-per-view. The semifinal matches are Terry Funk versus Sting, and Randy Savage versus Michael Hayes. So now we go into week 2. What do you think of week 1 so far?
I enjoyed it. I don't think those 4 guys have ever wrestled each other. Right?
It's Terry Funk versus Sting, and Randy Savage versus Mike Hayes. I don't think Savage did Funk and Sting ever wrestle each other in like when Funk was doing the heel run in WCW?
Oh yeah, sorry, okay. I'm dumb.
No, that's all right. I had to think about it too because that there was so much change during. I don't think
they ever had a one-on-one match. There was a lot of tag team stuff.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think Randy Savage and Michael Hayes ever even interacted that I remember. But that's why I put them in that semifinal to build toward the pay-per-view, though, because I was like, first of all, they're both flamboyant. They're both great on the mic. It's something you've never seen. I think they could have good back and forth promos and shit.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, Freebird. So week 2 here. Week 2, we intro the show. Of course, Jesse and Gorilla intro the show. They talk about the tag title matches. The first one being the Beverleys versus Coco and Tito, and then also Gordy and Williams versus Patriot and Bagwell. Those 2 matches happen tonight. And then as we build toward Hogan and Flair, this week, Ric Flair will physically be on the show, and he will do a special interview this week. I had to book this like I was booking it in 1992, not 2024. I don't know if fans in 2024 could take that kind of booking. Like, they'd be like, why weren't Hogan and Flair on the first show?
Yeah, why aren't they already throwing hands? Flair should already hit Hogan with a car by now. Slow
Put
booking.
slow ass boring booking.
It's like, you
So,
mean he's gonna do it? He's gonna do an interview where he's not even in the building? The fuck, man?
quite frankly, I probably taped all this at once. Anyway, the next match, the first match out the chute for the second episode of the show, tag team title tournament match, the Beverly Brothers versus Coco Beware and Tito Santana. I think that would be a good matchup. Beverly's win after a 1-2-3 on Coco after their finisher. Good decisive victory for the Beverly Brothers. And they do mention, at the beginning, they did mention also that we are going to be hearing from some of the participants in next week's Intercontinental Championship Battle Royal. We heard from Cactus Jack last week. We'll hear from more competitors this week. And one of those competitors interviewed in the back with Eric Bischoff is Shawn Michaels. And he talks about how it's time for him to prove himself as a singles wrestler in professional wrestling. And next week, he's going to do that by winning the Intercontinental title Battle Royal. Then we get a one of those. Okay, so you remember you'd have the interviews back in the day where there'd be the two guys would be on the screen talking about their match, and then when they were done talking, it would like flip the screen, and then you'd see the other team.
Yeah.
Or whatever. We get one of those. It's the Patriot and Marcus Bagwell talking about how they have a big challenge ahead of them tonight as they face Steve Williams and Terry Gordy. But they think they're up for the challenge. They're going to win those tag team titles on pay-per-view. And then,
if I was fighting that team, I'd be like, look, this probably isn't going to go good for us. But we're going to try really hard.
What I did here was I had Patriot and Bagwell, given the old, we're going to give it the old college try kind of promo. And then the screen flips. That's why the screen flip is important. Yeah, because that's why it's important. It's one of those promos because the screen flips and then it's just Terry Gordy and Steve Williams laughing. Yeah. So that's a preview of that. Next matchup. I'd pay to see this one just to watch this one. But I'm going to put it on free TV because it'll set some shit up here. We have Bobby Eaton, 1992, against a very young Eddie Guerrero. Eaton versus Guerrero. During the match, Steve Austin and Barry Windham are out at ringside with Paulie, and they're kind of antagonizing Guerrero, kind of like because this is 92, so Guerrero's like the young punk kind of a thing, and, they're kind of being asshole-ish to him and everything. And then as they're doing that, much as he helped Sting last week with the Dangerous Alliance, Scott Steiner comes to ringside to kind of have Eddie Guerrero's back. That breaks down with Steiner and Austin and Windham on the outside, and Bobby Eaton does wind up winning this matchup against Eddie with the Alabama Jam, but it is a very competitive matchup. And then, of course, Steiner and Guerrero kind of run off the Dangerous Alliance again. Then another promo about the Intercontinental Battle Royal next week. This one is the Big Boss Man. He's going to be the Intercontinental Champion after next week's show. And then we get our first appearance on television here in our new promotion of The Undertaker as he defeats Greg the Hammer Valentine. But he is attacked after the match by the Barbarian with Slick handing out fucking orders. I guess I didn't say I'd like to use Paul Bearer as well. I don't think it makes the Undertaker at this point. It doesn't make any sense for me not to have Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll have some shenanigans in this Taker Barbarian feud with Paul Bearer and Slick. That'd be fun.
Slick's got to
you and your pimp manager, Slick.
Like out of the corner, out on the floor, like, come on, you stinky pimp. I don't know why
Stinky pimp.
I don't know why Stinky is funny to me, but I've never heard anybody call anybody a stinky pimp.
Let me tell you something, Paul Bear.
You fat. I'm trying to think what he'd call him.
You boss hog looking son of a bitch. Even though he don't even look like boss hog. I just think of a fat guy. With your
You ain't got no.
Undertaker with your
Go ahead.
Ned Beatty looking manager.
You ain't got no style. You ain't got no class. You fat little oaf.
You pale and you stupid. But yes, the Barbarian attacks the Undertaker. So obviously, I'm going to have them feuding going into the pay-per-view.
My favorite thing Slick ever said about anybody, sorry, was he was on commentary with Gorilla Monsoon. I can't remember what show this would have been, but it was Gorilla Monsoon and Slick doing commentary, and there was like a 6-man tag team match, and JYD was in it. JYD tagged in. He was like doing his thing or whatever, and Monsoon's like, "Look at JYD getting down, doing his thing," and Slick was like, "People can say whatever they want to say about JYD, but the man never learned to read. He just never learned to read, Monsoon." And Monsoon's like, "The JYD can read, Slick. He just never learned to read."
Just a blatant lie.
Yeah.
So after the Barbarian Taker segment on the show,
nobody makes that insult anymore about people either.
No,
like that used to be a thing. Like I can even remember that being as a kid. Like you don't know how to read, man. Anyway, go ahead.
The next matchup is that aforementioned tag team match between Steve Williams and Terry Gordy against Patriot and Bagwell. As you can probably imagine, Patriot and Bagwell put up more of a fight than Gordy and Williams thought they would, but not much more of a fight. And Steve Williams pins Marcus Bagwell. So our tag team championship match at the pay-per-view, Gordy and Williams versus the Beverly Brothers. I'd pay to see that one.
Terrified.
What's that?
So the Beverly Brothers should try to not act like it, but they should be terrified.
Oh yeah, yeah. The characters are definitely, yes, they're terrified. Yeah. Now, once you get to the match, of course, all 4 men are badasses, and it's going to be a hell of a fucking match. But
oh yeah. I wanted to say too that if you go just off like the time frame and then like the reality of the wrestling business or whatever, in a couple years, the tag team of Coco Beware and Tito Santana will be all over every armory on like northeast.
Yep, they'll be facing Tom Brandy and King Kong Bundy.
Yes.
Or Nikolai Volkov.
Yeah. And the Iron Sheik and Jim Neidhart will be there.
The next match on the show, Cactus Jack pins Barry Horowitz. Jesse Ventura this time interviews Cactus Jack again about the Intercontinental Tournament. And again, Cactus Jack guarantees victory. Says the promoters are putting 9 men in risk of not making their pay-per-view. He could be destroying the pay-per-view by being put in this battle royal because he's going to injure 9 of our 30 roster members. All of this, as I wrote it down, I was envisioning it in Mick's voice, and it sounded really fucking cool. Anyway.
It is. This was high-pitched, crazy Mick voice at the time.
She shows you his ear as much as he can.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels beats a jobber in a squash match. Eric Bischoff in the back, an interview with Sting. He talks to Sting about facing Terry Funk in the semifinals at the pay-per-view, and then asks him about this Papa Shango and his curse. And Sting says, "I don't know what the hell that is, Eric," and walks out. Randy Savage then defeats Scotty Flamingo. Gorilla Monsoon comments on how so far 2 weeks in a row on our show, Scotty Flamingo's been on a bit of a losing streak. Scotty Flamingo walks by and tells Gorilla Monsoon to shut his yapper about his record.
Yeah. You're on a pie-eating contest winning streak.
Shut your yapper about my record there, Monsoon.
Put a banana in it.
Randy
They
Savage.
were really good. They were really good together.
Oh fuck yeah, they were. Oh yeah, that's like that. My intention.
It's like
My
a hidden
intention.
gem in the WWE.
My intention and my promotion is for them to have lots of interaction with each other.
Yeah, they're like a little hidden gem in the WWE. It's funny now that like people can talk about stuff, with wrestling or whatever, and you look back on it and you realize shit. Like you can tell Gorilla Monsoon really liked Scott Levy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like when they're on commentary, they're really good together, and like I recently saw like a couple things where like people were talking about how Gorilla Monsoon did not like Randy Savage, like personally. Like he just did not. They did not like each other, and you don't think of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't look back on them and be like, oh, these two guys just did not like each other. It's just I don't know, not to sidebar or whatever. But now I just when you brought up Scotty Flamingo having some altercation with Gorilla, I'm like, man, those guys were good.
And also, you look back on it now too, and you mentioned that with Gorilla made me like, and I understand it was his personality or whatever, but if you look back on it now, Randy actually rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying there were a lot of people that disliked him or whatever, but Randy wasn't a guy that had a lot of friends in the business. Like,
he was kind of a Looney Tune, and
yeah, well, and even the guy he was closest to, Hogan, even him and Hogan were constantly like looking over their backs at each other. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Just a weird, paranoid dude. Fantastic performer, my favorite pro wrestler of all time. But as a person, just sounds like he was a weird dude.
paranoid motherfucker, man.
Mm-hmm.
When like Bad News was like, Elizabeth was like, come in and talk for a little bit, Bad News. He was like,
The fuck I am.
fuck I am. You ain't in there with nobody. I ain't doing that shit. I ain't getting fired. Like, fuck that. Anyway.
After the matchup, Randy Savage promo discusses facing Michael Hayes at the pay-per-view, how it's going to be the first time him and the Freebird Michael Hayes have ever hooked it up. And he's going to beat Hayes, and then he's going to win the championship on the pay-per-view, and he'll be happy to see his friend Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, or maybe he won't. Dig it. All right. So the next thing in this show is Steve Austin versus Jushin Liger. Jushin Liger looks like he's going to get a victory over Austin. Paulie dangerously in the ring with on the apron with a distraction. So instead of drop kicking Austin, Liger hits Paulie with a little drop kick off the ring apron, which brings out Bobby Eaton and Barry Windham. And then Scott Steiner and Eddie Guerrero out to the ring, and all six men go at it. And as we go off the air for the show for this week, the team of Jushin Liger, Eddie Guerrero, and Scott Steiner challenge the Dangerous Alliance to a 6-man tag at the pay-per-view. So if it's accepted, it'll be Steve Austin, Bobby Eaton, and Barry Windham versus Scott Steiner, Eddie Guerrero, and Jushin Liger.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
Scott's a champion of the immigrants. For him.
These guys are 33 1/3 citizens. So far, week 2, we're on our way to the pay-per-view. We go into week 3 of TV here. Gorilla and Jesse, of course, intro top of the show. They talk about finally tonight, it's the Intercontinental Championship Battle Royal. Your participants, Shawn Michaels, Tatanka, The Big Boss Man, Cactus Jack, Steve Austin, Tito Santana, Coco Beware, Greg Valentine, Scotty Flamingo, and The Barbarian. That's our main event tonight. And they also discuss the fact that live in the arena tonight, they are both in the arena tonight, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. And Hulk Hogan will have a special interview later on with Gorilla Monsoon. But right now, Ric Flair in action We go to the ring, and Ric Flair defeats Barry Horowitz. Then Gorilla Monsoon throws to the back this little twerp, this little weasel. He's going to be in the Intercontinental title Battle Royal tonight. Scotty Flamingo, what do you got going on tonight? Why are you even in this Battle Royal? You haven't won a match yet. Flamingo says his dad got him in the Battle Royal. And Gorilla's like, your dad? And he's like, yeah, my dad. You know, my dad, he's got a lot of money. He knows the promoter. I got in the Battle Royal. You calling me a loser, Gorilla? I'm going to be the Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah, it's my dad.
Yeah,
Donnie Flamingo.
It's Donnie Flamingo.
Donnie Flamingo. You know Donnie Flamingo?
He goes with Trump. You know him. And then Gorilla Monsoon just goes,
Flamingo's not it. Like, he's just trying to be claiming that Flamingo's not his stage name. He's like, yeah, my dad, Donnie Flamingo.
And of course, then Gorilla just says, whatever, you little twerp. Then when we come back from commercial after that.
Sorry, my ear thing fell out. What'd you say?
Oh, I just said Gorilla Monsoon calls him a little twerp. And then we go to commercial. And when we come back from commercial, Papa Shango.
I'm just thinking of. Sorry.
No,
I'm just thinking of Scotty. I'm just thinking of Scotty Flamingo being like of this affluent family, and he's like, like we're the flamingos of like, I'm trying to think like of a classy place or whatever.
The Flamingos of Beverly Hills.
Yeah, with the Flamingos of Beverly Hills, don't you know?
Whatever, you little, and then I just picture Gorilla. Whatever, you little twerp.
My mom, Ruth Flamingo.
Ruth Flamingo.
Yeah, my dad, Donnie Flamingo.
My brother. My brother Ringo Flamingo.
Ringo Flamingo. And then our sister Janice. I'm just I'm even though he's Jewish, I'm imagining him portraying the Flamingos as Italian, so there has to be a Janice. Or should they be the Jew family Flamingo? I'm thinking too much of the Scotty Flamingo gimmick for your own show. Sorry.
It's fine. It's great. I love it. It adds dimension. If I decide to book later more shows, you never know. We might decide after this to be like, let's book another 4 weeks in a pay-per-view later on down the line. Papa Shango then wins a squash match. And during the commentary, they just talk about they don't know what he's talking about, a curse. Sting doesn't know what he's talking about, a curse. Nobody knows what this mysterious man, Papa Shango, is talking about. Steve Williams and Terry Gordy win a squash. And they do a promo with Eric Bischoff discussing the Beverly Brothers at the pay-per-view. Then after the break, the Beverly Brothers win a squash. And they also cut a promo. And what I put here is, just like you were alluding to earlier, Beverly Brothers seem a little timid about Gordy and Williams, but are confident they'll win the championship. So they are showing that, they're scared, but they're not scared, that kind of a thing. Because with the Beverlys, they can be a little bit, because since they are supposed to be hoity-toity heels, they can be a little bit chicken shit, but you don't want to take them too far into chicken shit. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't do that. I mean, that's why I was saying they should just be a little apprehensive that they got to do this. I also hope they wind up with Slick, because I want the Beverly Brothers and the Barbarian to be in the same group.
And Scotty Flamingo.
Yeah.
All right, so the next match on this show, Michael Hayes versus Marcus Bagwell. Hayes goes over, and then he afterwards cuts the promo up at the desk with Gorilla and Jesse on facing Randy Savage for the first time ever at the pay-per-view, and how he will go on to be the world's champion. And then we get Gorilla hypes it up at the next hour is about to begin, and at the top of the hour, it will be my pleasure to bring to this ring the immortal Hulk Hogan. So we come back. Hulk Hogan comes out. Gorilla interviews Hogan. It's your standard Hogan promo. But he's also talking about it's the first time he's ever going to face Ric Flair Ric Flair says, brother, that I've been running scared of him, but I think he's been running scared of me because after his match with Barry Horowitz tonight, Ric Flair left the arena. So you're still not getting Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair in the same ring. They're technically not even in the same building at the same time. And this is how you book a big match, motherfuckers. It's about the anticipation.
Yes. Very much so.
So that's that. Hulk Hogan, I'm going to take down Ric Flair on pay-per-view. I'll see you at the pay-per-view, Ric Flair. And then he tells Ric Flair if he has the guts to join Hogan to sign the contract officially in person next week, Hogan will be here. Flair, I dare you to show up. Then we get a match between Barry Windham and Scott Steiner. Steiner winds up winning said match by disqualification. Just more stuff with Eaton and Austin and Guerrero and Liger involved.
Is that Vince's dumbest decision ever? Like, or young Vince?
Dropping the Steiners?
No.
Oh.
Not going with Flair and Hogan? Or like the most puzzling one of like, why are you...
From everything I understood, it was a combination of a couple of things. Whereas first, he had a knee-jerk reaction to the fact that the first times that they had Hogan and Flair wrestle, it didn't do well. The crowd
did it on the West Coast, which was
right. That's what I'm saying. He had a knee-jerk reaction to that. And in his brain, another thing, I guess, that played into his decision, all of this, I don't remember where I heard all of this. I don't think it was Bruce Pritchard, because I don't think Bruce Pritchard was there at the time. I think this was one of the times he was fired. So I don't know who maybe I read it in somebody's book, like Patter. Anyway, there was also something that Vince had promised Sid that if he came to the WWF in 91, that he would main event WrestleMania. So technically he gave him his main event at WrestleMania because Hogan's match was last. So it was quote unquote the main event. So I think there were a bunch of things that went into why we never got Hogan and Flair at WrestleMania.
Wow, it was dumb.
I agree. Now, I mean, hindsight, I'm happy because Savage and Flair is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And I love that. I love that feud. I love that feud more than I probably would have loved a Hogan Flair feud.
Yeah, it's just I just think it's just
you haven't been beat up properly yet.
No, I mean I agree. I just think it's like one of the biggest like.
As far as a box office decision, absolutely. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like I said, you did it on the West Coast, which back then it wasn't regional, but it was still kind of that way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they always say that, like, in wrestling, like Los Angeles is like one of the worst places to go. It's like one of the hardest places to draw. It's like it's not even just wrestling; it's anything because everything is there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like you go to Indianapolis and not knocking Indianapolis, but you take like a wrestling event there or a concert or something, it's gonna sell out because not a lot of shit's happening there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to LA, there's 15 fucking concerts going on in one fucking night.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, the next matchup on the show, Terry Funk beats the Patriot. And of course, Funk cuts a promo as well, and he's going to win the title at the pay-per-view. The Barbarian beats a jobber in a squash match. And then we get some mystical Undertaker light effects and stuff to kind of intimidate Slick and the Barbarian. But it will be officially the Undertaker versus the Barbarian on the pay-per-view. Then our main event for this episode is the Intercontinental Battle Royal. And I have here, right off the bat, after all that shit he talked leading up to this, as a kind of a fluke deal, the Big Boss Man, immediately when the Battle Royal starts, the Big Boss Man eliminates Cactus Jack, like a surprise clothesline over the top rope. But Cactus Jack then pulls on Boss Man's arm. Greg Valentine dumps the Big Boss Man, and then Cactus Jack proceeds to beat the Big Boss Man with his own nightstick. The final four in the Battle Royal: Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, Tito Santana, and Scotty Flamingo. First man out, Shawn Michaels by Tito Santana. Then Tito Santana also interviews. It eliminates Tito Santana interviews Scotty Flamingo. Eliminates Scotty Flamingo. So then the end of this battle royal, and I envision this to be one of those things like, remember that Survivor Series where everybody else gets eliminated and then you get a nice like 5 to 7 minute match between DiBiase and Brett.
Yeah.
That's how I envisioned this battle royal, because the final two men are Steve Austin and Tito Santana. And it's like a good 5 to 7 minute back and forth between the two of them. Ultimately, Austin hits the it's not the slingshot, the stun gun. Hits the stun gun on Tito, throws him out. Steve Austin is the Intercontinental Champion. And that's how we end that episode.
That's part of Tito's 92, man. He was always like the last guy there, but not the last guy there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yep. Have you seen the video that he narrates about him and Shawn at WrestleMania 8 when they go face to face before they wrestle?
Yeah, he's like, "You got a booger in your face.
You got a booger in your nose." And then Shawn goes and clears the booger, and then he comes back and Tito's like, "All right, no booger."
You got it. Good job.
I just like, all right, no booger.
I'm not wrestling you with a fucking booger hanging out of your nose.
I love the video when he says it too, because every millions of times you've ever watched that, you never caught what he was saying. But now
he says you have a booger in your nose.
Now you see it every time. Okay.
What did you see? Godfather talking to Undertaker about when they had their interaction on Raw is War or whatever. When he was trying to get the Undertaker, to take the hose.
No, I don't think I did see that. I remember that. I remember that, but I don't remember. I don't think I've seen them talking about it.
He didn't, because they're best friends. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
They're just best friends. And I guess Taker didn't know that like Godfather was gonna go all the way with his gimmick. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To the Undertaker. So he looks at the Undertaker. He's like, "Oh, and we all know the Undertaker loves them hoes." And like Mark has to like cover his mouth because he's wanting to laugh, because it's like, I don't know. I guess you kind of got to see those two talking about it. But yeah, It's like Godfather being like, "We all know the Undertaker loved them hoes." It's like nobody else. It's kind of like the discussion is kind of like nobody else could have got away with doing that,
right?
To him, other than like the Godfather.
But no, I've definitely seen the video of that. I just don't think I've ever seen them. Was Godfather on Undertaker's podcast or something? Is that when they were talking about it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Man, like Undertaker's talking about like it's like he wanted to laugh so hard because like the gimmick's ridiculous to begin with, and then here he is offering the Undertaker hose. Just.
All right, fourth week of TV, and this is your standard fourth week of TV for like the year 1992. There's a lot of promos here, a lot of videos here. It's kind of more of a hype show for the pay-per-view than anything else. So we have Gorilla and Jesse and Bischoff all together at the beginning of the show, kind of recapping what's been going on leading up to the pay-per-view. How tonight Hulk Hogan has called out Ric Flair to be face-to-face with him to sign the contract for the biggest match of the century, Hogan and Flair, this Sunday on pay-per-view. Papa Shango defeats Barry Horowitz. And again, we're just discussing here, what does Papa Shango mean by Sting is cursed? Does this guy have magical powers? I haven't seen any. He's really weird, blah, blah, blah. We have a recap of the title tournament. Terry Funk cuts a promo discussing the fact that he respects Sting, but he also respects being a world champion more. And at the pay-per-view, he's going to beat Sting just like he would beat Hogan or Flair. Sting cuts a promo on Terry Funk, kind of in the same vein. Like, I respect you, Terry Funk. You're one of the greatest of all time, but I need to become the champion this Sunday on pay-per-view. The big boss man comes out. He's a little bandaged and bruised up. He faces Greg Valentine, and he will be facing Cactus Jack this Sunday on pay-per-view, and the nightstick is legal during that match. We get a promo in the back from Paulie and Steve Austin. Austin talking about being the Intercontinental Champion and how he doesn't have to defend his title at the pay-per-view because he's going to be in that 6-man tag match. And of course, they talk about the 6-man and that the Dangerous Alliance is going to go over. Michael Hayes defeats Coco Beware. We have a recap of the tag title tournament. Promos from Gordy and Williams, promo from the Beverly Brothers. We have a rematch between Eddie Guerrero and Bobby Eaton, and this time Eddie Guerrero defeats Bobby Eaton, headed for the pay-per-view. We have more flip promos. Michael Hayes cuts the promo on Randy Savage. Randy Savage cuts the promo on Michael Hayes. And of course, these promos this week, folks, are longer. The guys are in front of not a green screen, but you know what I mean. They're in the, they're cutting the promo like the old school type promos, and they're longer promos to hype you up for the pay-per-view. Scott Steiner defeats, you guessed it, Scotty Flamingo. This time, Scotty won't even acknowledge that Gorilla Monsoon exists. He just walks past the man. He's going to go see his brother Ringo. And then the announcers discuss the historic importance, the historic nature of the match between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair this Sunday on pay-per-view, to which we throw to the ring, officials in the ring, whoever, I didn't pick a commissioner or president, whoever that is, Hulk Hogan comes out, Ric Flair comes out, face-to-face contract signing, and you just do it. With something like this, you just do the standard kind of like Hogan babyface contract signing, right?
Yeah.
You just, the stare down.
Doesn't need to be anything physical.
Nope, there is nothing physical other than, maybe Flair aggressively throws the pen at Hogan or something to put a little kibosh on it or whatever to get Hogan a little fire in his eyes or whatever. But yeah, nobody goes through a fucking table.
And it shouldn't be, because guess what? These two guys are supposed to be the two biggest stars in professional wrestling, right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Why would they be dumb enough, 3 days before the pay-per-view, to get into a physical altercation and possibly get hurt?
Yeah. I'm no John Moxley, brother.
Yeah. You're not going to be putting dry pasta noodles in my head. Or whatever that fucking stupid shit is.
So that's it. We go off the air with obviously Gorilla and Jesse talking about that's going to be the biggest match of all time this Sunday on pay-per-view. Hogan versus Flair. All right, so now we have reached the apex here, the climax, the pay-per-view, the Hogan versus Flair pay-per-view to crown the new champions as well. And I think the only way to start a pay-per-view like this hot is with the booked 6-man tag that I had here. So it's the Dangerous Alliance, Steve Austin, Bobby Eaton, and Barry Windham against Scott Steiner, Eddie Guerrero, and Jushin Liger. And I just wrote down here in my notes, I booked this, and I think this would be amazing. But of course, the Dangerous Alliance has to go over after bunches of insanity and chicanery in there. Paulie gets the phone shot in on Eddie Guerrero, and Steve Austin pins Eddie Guerrero, so the Dangerous Alliance gets all their heat back and wins the 6-man tag.
All right.
So now we go to the semifinals of the championship tournament, the first of which is Terry Funk versus Sting. Competitive match. During the match, the finish that I kind of stole the finish, actually. You remember everybody.
Every finish has been stolen.
Yeah, well, anybody that's a 90s wrestling fan remembers the Sergeant Slaughter Ultimate Warrior finish from Royal Rumble 91 with the scepter, right?
Yes.
So I kind of stole that. Papa Shango's been talking about this curse that he has on Sting. So, Shango has that skull scepter thing. So that's what I went with here. Sting is draped over the middle rope, and Papa Shango comes to the ring and cracks Sting with that scepter, breaking it over his head. Terry Funk gets the victory over Sting, 1, 2, 3, and he advances to the finals. The finish of the next semifinal match is a little more cut and dry, although I think the match would be fine. I don't know that it would be great. Like I said, I think these guys would have meshed well on the mic. I can't say how they would have meshed in the ring, but Randy Savage goes over Michael Hayes after a good match with the elbow smash, 1, 2, 3. So our finals for the title coming up are going to be Randy Savage versus Terry Funk. The next matchup is The Undertaker versus The Barbarian. I don't think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong in the way I booked this, because not everybody's a perfect booker. Not even the best bookers are always perfect. But I think in this instance, it's okay for The Undertaker to go over clean with a tombstone.
Yeah. It's his debut pay-per-view match or whatever, and
Barbarian's a badass. He loses nothing. He can get his heat back easy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't think about it at the time, but since I'm going to go ahead and say that I have Paul Bearer, of course, there'd be some the stuff that we talked about with Slick and Paul Bearer.
Yeah, Paul
outside
Bearer
the ring. Stinky
hit him
Pimp
with the urn. Your stinky pimp hit him with the urn.
He hits him with the urn. Slick's hat goes flying.
Yeah.
The next match.
Now you really are ashy.
Yes. The next match is the nightstick match. The nightstick is legal. Cactus Jack and the Big Boss Man. I'm not putting the nightstick on a pole or anything. I'm just saying the nightstick is legal to be used in the match. These two are two
stuff on poles anyway.
Yeah, me neither. And these two are badasses. And I think they'd have a really good. I don't know if they ever. Well, maybe they probably wrestled each other in the Attitude Era.
Oh, everybody wrestled everybody in the Attitude Era,
but not for more than 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's a good long kind of brawl between these guys. The Cactus Jack gets his heat back as a heel to continue probably this feud in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how. I haven't booked beyond this, but Jack actually beats the Big Boss Man by using his own nightstick on him and bloodying him up. So Cactus Jack gets the victory there. In the tag team title match, which is next, Williams and Gordy versus the Beverleys. Like we discussed earlier, the Beverleys are apprehensive about having this match, but you tell me if I'm wrong. This match would be fucking gangbusters.
Oh, it would. Everybody in it's great.
Well, ultimately, after probably, a good 15 to 17 minute awesome match, Steve Williams pins Bo Beverly, and the winners and tag team champions, Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy. The next two matches were unadvertised, but they're going to be on the show because I wanted to put some other people on the show that didn't get on. The next match is a face versus face tag team match, kind of to put the younger dudes over After a good competitive match, the Patriot pins Coco Beware. It's the Patriot and Patriot and Marcus Bagwell against Tito Santana and Coco. Then the next match, which is also a not advertised match, but to get these two on the card because we want to talk about them because they're going to be an important part of the future of our promotion here. At this point, they're both still young. They're both still got a hell of a future ahead of them. Shawn Michaels defeats Tatanka with a 1-2-3.
All right.
And then we have the World Championship Finals. It is Randy Savage versus Terry Funk. And the way I see this playing out, and you tell me if I'm wrong, this is the kind of match where, okay, so Funk is Terry Funk, Savage is Randy Savage. It's kind of, they're both crazy bastards, but I think in this match with Randy being the underdog or being the face, and with Liz on the outside screaming and being supportive and reacting like she did when Randy would ever be in trouble, Terry Funk is vicious and Randy's fighting from underneath. Does that make sense?
No.
Like Funk bloodies Randy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I'm saying my finish for this match is not super clear cut. It's pretty much Savage fighting from underneath, comes back against Funk. Funk kind of puts him down again. Savage fights back from underneath. And I think in this, I'm going to put the world title on Randy, but he goes over with kind of a small package out of nowhere finish on Funk. Like, Funk could have, you know what I mean? Funk could have beat him at any time. Maybe he didn't pin him when he should have or whatever. Do that kind of a thing.
I would make Funk crazier if he lost that way, instead of losing,
Yeah, because
decisively.
he loses and literally because it's out of nowhere, he could lose and just get right back up and go after Savage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a thing because obviously I have Randy Savage and Terry Funk, and I would love for this program to continue. So my Intercontinental Champion is Steve Austin. My Tag Team Champions are Williams and Gordy. My World Champion is Randy Savage. And then in the final match of the pay-per-view, the Hogan versus Flair pay-per-view, I know there's probably a lot of people that, what do I want to say? There's so many people, and I know, and I'm not talking about Hulk Hogan now that we know that he's like a racist and shit, but like there's so many people that discount Hulk Hogan, and anytime they see where Hulk Hogan went over somewhere, they're like, it was politics or whatever. No, it wasn't politics most of the time. It was box office. He was box office. You can say what you want about the guy, but he made a lot of fucking money, and any promotion that had him made a lot of fucking money.
And I've always said, anybody that's our age that likes wrestling that says they weren't a Hulkamaniac is lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to sound cool.
Yeah.
We all liked Hulk Hogan. All of us.
So I would
there was no 8-year-old kid sitting there going, I don't like Hulk Hogan. He's just getting over because of politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, at that time you were like, this guy's the fucking man. But anyway, go ahead.
And like for me, okay, Hogan, the only problem that in hindsight, probably, and I mean, again, they weren't thinking about what smart marks or whatever think. They're thinking about box office. Like, I have no problem with the fact that WCW hired Hulk Hogan. They put him in his first match with Ric Flair so they could be the first ones to do Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. And I understand why in his first match in their company, Hogan went over Flair. I get it. The only thing that I, in hindsight, look back on it as is the only thing I think that I don't care for it was the fact that it was a title match.
No, that's not even it for me. I just think once they did it, they just kept going back to it too much.
Right, and Flair never got any real heat on Hogan.
Yeah, it should have been like Flair and Hogan do their thing at Bash at the Beach, Hogan goes over, and then they don't have anything really to do with each other until the next year's Bash at the Beach.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But then also, Hogan did a thing that a lot of people do, and or in entertainment sometimes they don't realize they're doing it. Like how I just said, when we were kids back then, anybody that says like in the 80s and the early 90s they weren't a Hulkamania fan, or a Hulk Hogan fan or whatever is lying. The problem is like, and it took them a minute to realize it, like Hogan's fans outgrew that gimmick. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes in entertainment, people don't realize that until it's too late. He figured it out in enough time that he knew he could flip the script and turn bad, and people would be into it.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
And then
I say
there's
that with
people.
me. I say that with musicians all the time because like there's like musicians out there I don't like their music or whatever, but like, I don't even know if she's still a thing anymore or whatever. But like when um Miley Cyrus went from being like the girl on the Disney Channel to being what she is now or whatever,
Yeah.
and everybody was like, she's supposed to be a role model for young little girls. It's like those young little girls aren't young little girls anymore.
Right.
Like they don't want they'll go to the concert and listen to Party in the USA or whatever, but that's not what they want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, and I always say that too, like both because as you know, based on when my daughter was young, I have experienced lots of both Miley Cyrus as Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber in my life, right?
Yeah.
And as they have grown as humans, they have grown as artists. And I've
Yeah,
always,
because their audience has done that.
I'm not a fan of Bieber, but what I will admit about him is that he grew up to be, he's actually a good musician. It's not, his music isn't my music, but I see his talent. Miley, on the other hand, honestly, I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan, and like Stevie Nicks is one of my favorite vocalists of all time. And Miley has grown into almost like a Stevie Nicks. Like her music is actually good quality music now.
I've
When
never heard it. Honestly, I've never heard any of
no,
it.
and that's fine, but I'm just saying I'm agreeing with you. She evolved. Evolving is important, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like for me, I respect Miley Cyrus more than I respect Steven Tyler because Steven Tyler's 75 years old and he's still wearing spandex. And
Yeah.
he's still wearing the same shit he wore in the 70s. So you look
Yeah,
pathetic. You look like
they just retired, by the way. But yeah,
yeah, I read that. But you know what I'm
I
saying
get what
though?
you're saying.
Like he never evolved himself at all.
Yeah.
Um so anyway, I know we went off in the weeds there. All for me to
Yeah, it's like
justify.
if that's the gimmick, I'm just saying, like if that's the gimmick you want to do at the time, you better figure out how to change it because eventually people are going to want to see
Mhm.
that and you're going to look lame.
And
Like I
Hogan,
don't I I don't think that about like you just said like Steven Tyler or whatever, but like if AC/DC would come out right now and like be like, oh, we're gonna do it, which I don't know if they still tour any. I think they were gonna go back out. But anyway, if those guys showed up and they were like, we're gonna perform, I wouldn't have a problem with it because guess what? They've always just, other than Angus, obviously, they've always just been like jeans and a t-shirt.
yeah,
You know, it's like I got no problem. Like it's almost like kind of like Bruce Springsteen too. Like he doesn't seem like he's out of place doing it because he's always just been kind of
he's
like
just done it
I'm
that
gonna wear.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
anyway,
it was never outlandish. It was
yeah,
never, I understand why Steven Tyler wore spandex and shit in the 80s. But
yeah. And in the
Jesus
'70s,
Christ,
like yeah,
man.
it's like now you look like Katie Seagal from the fuck when she was on Sons of Anarchy.
And it works in the other respect too. Reinventing yourself can be good. Hogan always pretty much did it good. He was the Incredible Hulk Hogan with Blassie. Then to make a bunch of fucking money, He evolved into Hulk Hogan Hulkamania. Then he evolved into Hollywood Hogan, and then because it was best for business, he evolved into like a mix of both when he went back to WWE.
Yeah.
And then, in his last days TNA, I can be honest, I didn't see a lot of that, but where it can be the opposite and you can look pathetic and almost like a Steven Tyler, I would say the last great evolution of Jericho was when he evolved into suit and tie Jericho.
Yeah.
Any of his later incarnations have just been sad. I take that back. The List was fun. When he had like
but that was kind of like a hybrid of the pompous Jericho and the goofy Jericho,
Yeah. Yeah. And I quit watching AEW like 2 years ago, but most of what I've seen him in AEW is pretty sad. I don't know. Anyway, so I said all that. What does I don't know how Cornette puts it about reaching around your back to scratch your balls or something. But anyway,
you reach around your back to scratch your elbow. I say that. I've said that for years, and I said it at work the other day. I was like, "There's this guy that'll explain something kind of like what we just did, but like over the walkie."
filling the room with words.
Yeah, it should be like a 10-second thing, and his is always like a 35-minute, or not 35-minute, but like 35-second thing. And I said that the other day. I was like, "Oh man, that guy would go around his back to scratch his elbow." And the guy I said it to was like, "Why wouldn't he just like scratch it? Why doesn't he just scratch it normally?"
Exactly.
I'm like, he doesn't really do. I was like, never fucking mind.
Hat on a hat. But no, all
Anyway.
that long way to get to the fact that I am in this match putting Hogan over clean over Ric Flair after a good match, 1, 2, 3. The crowd goes home happy. Hulk Hogan wins. The funny thing about it was, as I was booking this originally, just, whatever, pull back the curtain. Originally, my finish for Funk and Savage was going to be different. Savage was still going to win, but I wasn't going to book it as a way for them to continue in a way. But then I thought, no, I'd like to see that feud go on, so I booked it differently. Because originally, Hogan was going to beat Flair, but then I was going to have Terry Funk come out and beat them both up. But I was like, no, this kind of a show, you got to send the people home happy. So overall, my champions are Randy Savage, Steve Austin, and Gordy and Williams. And we see where we go. Maybe a continuation of Hogan and Flair. I'm continuing Savage and Funk. The Dangerous Alliance is in full force. I got to give myself a little credit. I think I booked just a nice little promotion here for my first 4 weeks.
I agree. I enjoy it. Like you said, maybe if we kind of run out of ideas or whatever for show ideas, we can be like, hey, let's just go back to this well.
Yeah, come back to this. I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't either.
So that being said, next week we will have Aaron's promotion, his big pay-per-view, his 4 weeks leading up to it. I'm looking forward to seeing that. The thing I'm looking forward to seeing the most is, for those of you that probably don't know, we may have talked about it on the show before, but when we were kids and into our teens and even into our 20s, we actually booked promotions and would present our shows to each other like this. And to me, it's the most interesting thing about it is to compare our booking styles to each other. Like you're going to book things differently than I am, and I enjoy that. I enjoy like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have thought to do it that way or whatever. Or once in a while, why the fuck did you do it that way? Just I don't know. It's
different
just fun.
ideas, and like just different ideas of the ways things should be presented and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So I'm
I've always
looking.
been even when we were kids, my shit was always a little more ridiculous than yours. You know, just because I'm a little more ridiculous than you. Just the way it was. You know.
So that being said, next week again we will have Aaron's promotion, and hopefully everybody enjoyed this. Wasn't bored with listening to my fantasy booking. Some people don't like fantasy booking, other people do. So those of you that like
If
it,
they don't like it, don't listen to it.
right? Yeah, those of you that don't like it, whatever. Those of you that did enjoy it, feedback is always appreciated. You can comment on any of our posts on our Facebook group at the WNR Podcast Network. We have an email address, wecan'twrestle@gmail.com. Make sure, if you do like to listen to your shows on YouTube, if you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, all of the shows for Reliving the Extreme and the We Can't Wrestle podcast are now available on the WNR Podcast Network page on YouTube. There's no video, so you don't have to look at our ugly mugs. It is just a logo the whole time you're listening to it. But I know some people do prefer to listen to their shit on YouTube, so we are there. And the cool thing now is the way that YouTube has it set up, since they got rid of Google Music or whatever the fuck it was called. Now, whenever I post a podcast to all of the podcast platforms, it also just goes to YouTube. So I don't have to do anything extra, any extra work. So it's quicker for me to get them up, because before I would post the audio to all the other platforms and then I would have to go back and do a different thing for YouTube. And sometimes I got behind. That's no longer the case. So you are getting it as soon as you get it anywhere else on YouTube. So check it out. And we appreciate your support. Any parting words for our listeners, Aaron, now that we're back in action here?
No, just apologies for the delay, but it was what it was, and we're gonna get back to being as regular as possible with our shows. So just look forward to that, everybody. We're back.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy your time, whatever you're doing this summer. And we'll see you next week here on the We Can't Wrestle podcast.